Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of In Lay Terms. I'm your host, Payman Ascari, and our guest is a returning guest and a personal friend, Mr. JP. How's it going, JP?
Good, brother. It's really good to be back. As we were talking before the stream, we spoke. It's been slightly less than a month, slightly more than a month ago. We last spoke, and so much has transpired on the political front. So many positions are evolving, and things are occurring at such a pace that it's going to be interesting to check back and see what's changed since.
Yeah, this it's getting to a point like what happens on a Monday definitely isn't relevant on a Friday, but it's sometimes not even relevant on a Wednesday, like when the tariffs were announced and Justin Trudeau bent the knee in like 48 hours.
It's phenomenal the pace everything's occurring. Like I say, when you really frame it in the broader context of looking at what's occurring geopolitically, like in all of the Western democracies, it really kind of puts it more into perspective. Seemingly, and again, I have to qualify this as conjecture. There's no way to vet the information that I kind of want to relay. There's no way to I have no citations of my primary source data. This is just kind of my feel of it. So I want to qualify this as conjecture before I get into it. But when you look at the broad view geopolitically, seemingly an old oligarchy is being replaced by a new oligarchy. And it's happening at a pace that's just phenomenal to actually observe happening. Like I say, right after Trump was elected, you started to see what a lot of people refer to as the globalist technocrats, the puppets, that Macron in France, Olaf Scholz in Germany, Justin Trudeau in Canada. You've seen them start to fall, and you've seen an adversarial position taken against them. Hence, Canada presently, I really think that's what's got a lot of people confused on their loyalties and what it even means to be Canadian presently, because even that's up for discussion.
No, definitely. First of all, we have a loyal viewer. She watches every day. How's it going, Prairie? Well, she can't hear me. She can hear me, but she can't respond. So where do you want to start? Do you want to start with what your criticisms of the parliamentary system are?
Well, number one, I that. Give me 1 second here. I apologize. That is the dentist calling me. um, so essentially, I'm just, and I'll be honest. I think, like a lot of Canadians, I truly believed when I was told that the role of the crown was purely symbolic, that we have a very progressive or democratic style governmental system. I kind of just took that at face value. Um, Doing some research in the last few months and just understanding the functional premise of a lot of it, like for instance, the governor general is picked by the PM, and then the crown, I believe it was Queen Elizabeth in 2021, confirms our governor general. Then the governor general's functional role is to confirm the prime minister's appointed Senate choices. It just kind of seems like a circle jerk of tyranny. Like just where are the people in this process? Where are our interests? And I grasp the representative government. We elected the prime minister by party majority in the parliament. I really do understand that. But I think functionally it's archaic. I think if we're an independent sovereign nation, we shouldn't have a sovereign. King Charles is Canada's sovereign. And again, it's all symbolic. Yeah, well, why is the governor general able to shut down our government for a historically unpopular minority government that wants to seemingly negatively impact these trade disputes? It's absolutely just outrageously corrupt, and I don't think enough people are framing it in that way. Like, just systemically, that's crazy to me.
So first of all, I got to nip it in the bud. I got to put my "Make Canada Great Again" hat on so the classical liberals don't attack me en masse after this episode. I agree with you. The like our government is really, it's a clown show. Like if you read the BNA Act, it's very apparent that it was never designed to function in a democracy. Like it's, you have the governor general and then you have the lieutenant governors, and the parliament in England makes the decisions, and we let the people deal with the little things like speed limits and whatnot.
That's right. Superfluous type legislation.
Yeah. So from that perspective, I understand it would make more sense to join the US. What would you say to the counter argument that, like, DC is just a swamp, it's corrupt, we can't be a part of that
So,
American empire?
so for me personally, I'm definitely conservative. I'm definitely more of a libertarian type of a conservative. I think that's the trajectory we should point to, is more individual agency and liberty at all times. I think it's crucial. Um, with that said, for me to make an argument now for a centralized union with the United States, it seems like I'm stepping outside of my purview, for instance. But I have to frame it in the geopolitical climate that's happening presently. I watched Steve Bannon recently laying out some theories about our Arctic and its strategic and military significance in the new world, like the Northwest Passage, with lots of the melting that's occurring and whatnot, which is from climate change, but not anthropogenic climate change. We won't go there. But with a lot of that stuff, it's becoming very much more relevant geopolitically. I think we're a prize, and I think the biggest way, I don't. First, I really have to clarify this. I don't want to be part of America. I would rather Canada flourish and we have reformation into a republic. That's what I desire, the individual me. And I know that would be superior for Canadians. We could be extraordinarily wealthy. But as for likelihood of it occurring, I think is next to none presently in this geopolitical climate and the prize that we are, not just from a resource standpoint, from a strategic standpoint. And here's the next part I want to lay out. Again, I got to qualify this as conjecture. I have a lot of people that send me various things they've found regarding Canadian politics, and I've been going down rabbit holes regarding some of the ties. Like, the Chinese government doesn't just have some influence in our parliaments or in our cities and our municipal governance. They actually control large aspects of our black market. So when you consider a lot of the Khalistani terrorist organizations, when you consider a lot of the other criminal organizations that are operating with specifically the distribution of fentanyl, and then when you see some of these, it's coming out now that lots of these trucking schools in Southern Ontario that are owned by some of these Sikh separatists are actually, bringing phenomenal amounts of fentanyl into the American market. When I look at how much of there's the Chinese influence within our system presently, and I think our parliamentary system is rife to be exploited in some regards. Especially comparative to an American constitutional system or a constitutional republic system. I think that definitely plays a role in America's view. I think everything at this point, we're just going through the motions, man. I think somehow we're going to be annexed as a territory or multiple states of America. And maybe it's going to take years. Maybe it's like the pre-programming now with this discourse. I'm interested to see if and this is just from a strategic standpoint, if I was America and that was my end game, I would release some legitimate intel, and I'd do it clandestinely. I'd do it on X. I'd release some intel regarding some of the immense corruption within the Canadian government. I seen Kyle Kemper recently alluding to his brother being involved in some sex extortion or something. He was so ambiguous about it. If you get a minute when we're done this conversation, check it out. Kyle Kemper says some wacky things, but he just strikes me as genuine. I think we're in the process. We're in the preliminary stages of receiving some legitimate disclosure regarding the clusterfuck of tyranny. Pardon my vulgarity, but I had to put emphasis on that point.
So if I was going to take your side, we've so mismanaged things. We're like the kid, the son, the black sheep's son that took like a loan from the parents, went and squandered it, spent it on women, bad business deals, and now we're broke and we're coming back, tail between our legs. Our military, we destroyed it. We can't protect the Arctic. We have to rely on the US. Our economy, we destroyed it because Trudeau is a socialist communist moron.
Mm-hmm.
Everything has gone woke. There's crime everywhere. There's drugs everywhere. I know I have this hat on, but I'm finding it very difficult to justify Canada as an actual nation.
There's also to mention the division as a nation. Like, the whole argument for state-sponsored media like CBC was to provide and facilitate a national identity amongst disparate groups of people. We have the Laurentian Quebecois. We have the Western Canadians. We have my lot down here in Eastern Canada. And I separate Eastern and Central Canada. A lot of Westerners will say, "Oh, you Easterners," when they're talking to Ontarios. People like, no, man, East is Atlantic. That's Eastern Canada. I really want to differentiate between the two groups. Not that I view one as better, but there's definitely division amongst all of these groups. Like the national cohesion that kind of kept us together, I wouldn't say it was an illusion, but it was very much helped by pushing narratives, by inundating the populace with these narratives that we've seen throughout the duration of my life. Now I'm 41 years old. I remember, like, and I see a lot of Gen Xers. It's like, our whole national culture was in many ways predicated on the contrast between us and our southern neighbors. Like I remember, for instance, the Molson Canadian beer commercials. My name is Joe, and I'm a Canadian. I don't live in an igloo. And you know what I mean? The whole premise was dispelling common American misconceptions regarding Canada. And then it's like this big, but at the end of the day, it's like, well, it was a beer commercial, man. Like, we're like, I'm not trying to say we have a proud military history. Most of that was under the red ensign, not the maple leaf. We're strong northern people that thrive in an inhospitable climate. Like, I'm not some kind of self-loathing Canadian. I love Canada. If I thought there was a viable way for us to actually establish a constitutional republic, that would be I would vehemently be defending that position. Again, what I said earlier, I really think there's more in play here that meets the eye, especially regarding American interests and what's occurring with this whole, like, you look at Europe, like, it's crazy, man, how much more influence these globalists, and I'm just gonna say it, like, because people, oh, the globalists, you sound like Alex Jones, or like you sound like some right-wing conspiracy theorist. No, there's quite frankly globalist corporate conglomerate interests that have been influencing our politicians for a very long time. If we can't accept that premise in some regard, I can't really talk to those people. Like, but when you look at what's happened to Europe, I think they're farther down the line of a Z agenda being implemented relative to Canada, especially when you look at the UK and Keir Starmer and what's happened there. And I really think that's a good comparison, because my concern with Pierre Poilievre is that he's Boris Johnson, that he's literally will get in there and just continue to implement the identical globalist agendas. The Paris Accord, the mass migration will continue, even though it's decimating the economy. It's decimating everything about this country. And it's not like, that's not some weird white supremacist dog whistle. I hate all that shit, man. Like, I don't, it's not some kind of, it's just from a practical standpoint. Like, if I have a house with 5 bedrooms, I can't be expected to take in 10 families. And I don't think any derogatory term levied at me for my position there is relevant. So I won't even acknowledge that. Like, it has nothing to do with even nationalism. It's pragmatism, it's practicality. Like, we are so beyond stressed out. We had no infrastructure reinforcement prior to this influx, and it's been nonstop. Like, wasn't there like 20, I read an article, I shouldn't mention it because I don't know the specifics, but I read an article recently that said there was like 20,000 student visas and 20,000 people didn't show up for class. So clearly people are taking advantage of this to get a foot in the door presently. And I think that's one of the biggest problems Canada has, beyond like just zooming in on like, what can we do nationally to start to practically or pragmatically rebuild. And it's, D is for deport. And I'm not trying to be mean, I'm not trying to be insensitive. I'm trying to be pragmatic and realistic from a Canadian standpoint.
Yeah, let me I'll bring it back. I'll make this more of a
Hey brother,
positive show.
can I ask you one thing? Is there any way you could get a little bit louder? I do not have headphones. I probably should, but I'm having kind of a hard time.
Where's the gain on this puppy? Is that better?
Oh my God, infinitely.
All right, there we go. So I'll stay closer to the mic. What was I going to say? Yeah, I'll bring it back and I'll be more positive about Canada's prospects. But from an immigrant's perspective, and from talking to a lot of voters, People go to America because they want to be free, they want to be producers, and they want to, build a better life. They want to do something with their life and contribute. People come to Canada for the safety and security. They don't have to worry about, crime. If anybody, there's a fist fight, you call the police. They don't have to worry about working hard and getting health insurance. If you get drunk and you fall off a ledge, you go to the hospital. They don't have to worry about going to a community with a good school. Like, they don't have to be good, responsible parents. They just, everything is nationalized. The money goes to the
Mhm.
province. It comes back to so it's this culture of laziness in Canada that's really preventing Canada from becoming a republic. And my whole pitch when I go to voters, I say, listen, either you vote for me or, the Christian Heritage Party or the Libertarian Party or independents, or people are going to start leaving Canada and going to the US.
All the smart money likely already has, if there's not logistical issues in facilitating it. As what happens, it's like I watched a union leader recently make an argument saying Canada should nationalize industries that want to leave because of Trump's tariffs. It's like, oh my God, that's just blatant, like, authoritarian Marxism. That's communism. Like, you are a communist, sir. Like, and no one's calling that out. Like, everyone's afraid, like, someone's going to say, you don't know what communism means. It's like, man, I've forgotten more about the many derivations of Marxism than most people are aware of. I'm not saying that. Look, dude, I clean toilets for a living. I really don't have my ego involved in this. I'm petrified. I use the analogy I used last time. Like, we're on a ship, man, and we're headed into tumultuous waters. And not only is there no one steering, but the crew is partying. We're absolutely just not even paying attention. And it's like, I'm screaming at people and I'm looked at like I'm crazy. Or I mean, I'm not looked at like I'm crazy, but I mean, that's the general consensus to my views. It's like, oh, dude, that's out there. That's conspiracy. It's like, I don't know, maybe I am nuts. I pray some days, Payman, that I am crazy. I sincerely do, because what I see is bleak, and I really, it's really disconcerting. Truly is.
Uh, I was born in Iran. I think you know that, but for the audience, Iran had a revolution in '79. It's gone
Mhm.
Islamic. It's crazy. Day by day, Canada is starting to more resemble the Islamic Republic of Iran. They're talking about putting an exit tax on citizens that are trying to flee the tyranny. That's not how
Phenomenal.
they're selling it. They're like, oh, if you're going to the U.S., you have to pay. No, it's an exit tax. Citizens fleeing tyranny.
That's phenomenal. I was not aware of that. That's wild.
Yeah.
And nothing surprises me now. That's the state of Canada, where it's just like, oh well, of course they are, because I see the grift. Again, I've studied a lot of totalitarian societies. I've seen the way this comes about. Especially, I think the best correlation would be with Maoism, with what's been happening in the West, because it's cultural. They're attacking and they're creating identity groups. Everything's based upon the equity, based upon these various convoluted identity groups and the intersectionality of them intermingling. Like, I'm a black, transsexual, neurodivergent, amputee. You know what I mean? It's intersectional identity group Marxism, and we should have equity based upon that. It's convoluted. I think it's predicated on just fallacious philosophy. Like, critical theory, I just think is so reductive, and if you study it at any level, I think I think rational minds come to the conclusion that it's. I'm not going to say there's nothing at all to it, but there's no way to apply it, to implement it. It's just it's crazy. It's like, it's convoluted legal theory is what the left characterizes it as. It's not. It's derived from Maoist roots, and it's pernicious, and it's intended to sow division and to be revolutionary.
Um, let's go to the comments. Actually, this is a gentleman by the name of David. He hosts the Freedom Conversation podcast. You should probably talk to him. I can get you on. He's more, Canada first.
Send me his deets.
So
I'd like to talk to everyone right now.
okay, I'll make the introduction. He brings up a good point, though. Just because the country is, mismanaged and moving towards tyranny, that maybe it's not the best thing to march headfirst into a globalism technically, you're just building a super state like the European Union, wouldn't you?
So I want to address that because I get this a lot, and I really want to clarify my position on that stance. Number one, I think what we're watching is another power system being set up. I don't think there's much of a way to stop that. So I'll answer it in two ways. Like, ideally, yes, we should resist this. I want decentralized government. The smaller, the more decentralized our systems of governance are, the safer I feel. I really mean that by every variable metric, by like from protecting us from war, from subjugation, from immense taxation, from state-sponsored tyranny. But again, it's like there's a reality right now. Maybe I'm being fooled. Maybe I'm kind of being manipulated by a lot of the propaganda too. But I really think that we're going to end up as America. It's not what I want. I if anything, I'm trying to make the argument it is, because I do believe it is better for us right now, because and that's comparative specifically to the Chinese Communist Party or joining the European Union or some of these alternatives I've heard mentioned. But I also think, and you and I touched on this in our last discussion, I'm a big constitutional guy. I think the founding fathers, I think they were brilliant. I think the Constitution itself is just an amazing document. So there's a premise in the Constitution of states' rights, the rights of a group in a state to govern themselves accordingly. Now, Trump's issued a lot of executive orders, but I think it's mostly to undo some of the tyranny that's enveloped and already taken hold and that's well entrenched within our systems. But I really think his premise is to give power back to the people. You could call me naive for that, man. I see Trump. I see the megalomaniacal nature. Everybody there said it was tremendous and this and that, but I think there's a lot of people behind him. I think right now we have a choice as populists, as people. The populist revolution isn't happening. It's not happening. I think we have a choice between the pro-human billionaires, Elon Musk, Peter Thiel, Donald Trump, all of these people that are trying to give some power back to the people. Basically, the billionaires that want us to have babies, or the neo-Malthusian billionaires that are anti-human and consider us useless breathers. That's kind of the dichotomy as I see it. And I really think we shouldn't be too quick to push away Trump in Canada. I really don't. And what I hate is that we're being gaslit. So the same people that systematically and thoroughly demonized and tried to erase our national culture are now turning around and they want us to dance for them. They want us to dance for them. And it's clear, it's obvious, it's because it fits their own nefarious purposes. Like, what did they all of a sudden just become pro-Canada? They considered a Canadian flag right-wing extremism very recently. It's so disingenuous. I just feel like I'm being manipulated and gaslit by them. And if anything, I've become more pro-America in direct response to them telling me I can't be.
Okay, so a bunch of us, we kind of saw this over the last few years where our country had been destabilized to the point when we said that if Trump gets back in, he's going to have a better negotiating position. And
100%. We
assumed that he would renegotiate NAFTA or USMCA, whatever it was. But this is like next level. I think Trump sees that the country is so weak.
Yes,
and he's attacking it to destabilize it. Now, what it's going to end up looking like, I don't know if it's going to be annexation or separation.
I think you're right, and I think multiple things can be true at the same time. I think that's a large part of it. But I also think that the corruption in Canada, specifically involving America's major enemy, the Chinese Communist Party. I mean, look at Toronto and some of the police stations that were there. Look at some of we still didn't get disclosure regarding what foreign entity was involved with 11 of our MPs. We know that they're controlling large elements of our black market. We know they have a stranglehold on our system. And from my perspective, I also think that our Westminster parliamentary system is a hindrance to actually dealing with it effectively. I think it's archaic. Like, look, I want to go back to that for a minute. I know I'm rambling, but like, if we're a sovereign nation, why do we govern ourselves as part of this Commonwealth, like an extension of a long dead British Empire? Why do we need that? historical tie? Why can't we be Canada now? Like, it's just, I think reformation, number one, like I said, under the ideal circumstances, payment, I would be 100% pro-republic in Canada. I wouldn't want anything to do with the American Union. But when I look at it from a pragmatic, practical stance presently, what's best for my family? I'm a working class man. I'm barely scraping by. This was the premise of our last discussion. Like, if this gets worse with this socialist government, I'm at my ceiling. So I mean, it's entirely real for me and millions of people like me. And I see a better offer. Now I'm going to be like, people, you're a traitor. I don't give. I'm so beyond explaining my position to people on that. I've written about it extensively. Sure, I'm a traitor. But my position is I'm not Canada first. I'm Canadians first. And if there's a better deal for our people, I think we would be absolutely foolish not to really, really seriously consider it.
I've heard so many people make the argument you're making, and it goes back to what I said. Trudeau has completely destabilized the country.
And I think it was intentional. I think this was intentional, but I don't think they accounted for Trump and the populist surge that happened as a direct response. Pierre Poilievre isn't popular because he's charismatic. Pierre Poilievre caught the wave of populism, and he was skilled enough to surf that wave, and he got the leadership off of that wave of populism. I was there at some of the early rallies in Dartmouth and Halifax. I seen the people that look just like me, working class guys that really fucking bought his narrative. Again, I apologize for the vulgarity, but really bought his narrative that he was our savior. And I mean, as most of us, as many of us started to look deeper into some of the systemic problems with our own system of governance, some of the immense corruption and influence of globalist and foreign interests in our government, we started to really, and then we got feckless Pierre that's literally, he's so afraid to alienate a fraction of a demographic of the voting electorate that he won't touch a contentious issue. And it's just like, man, we need someone to come out and speak the truth to Canadians. And I really think popularity will resonate. Like, I think that would be humongous if someone came out and just spoke absolute truth. Didn't, have their own interests. Like, Pierre wants to be the leader of Canada. We all know he does, and I understand that he does. But if he really wanted what's best for Canadians, I think he would have a different position.
So before I forget, you should reach out to Self-Governed as well.
Hit me up. Really after we're done, you should give me some of these names because I have no one to speak to. This is like the fourth time I've actually done a podcast discussion. I did some spaces. I mostly just write articles and long tweets. And that's my thing.
I'll send you over to a couple of podcasters. Self-Governed, he's a strategy guy. He's very clever. I've had him on my show, and he sort of gives a sobering perspective on the China thing. He says he's 100% agrees the Calistani thing is a problem. He says the China one, it might be a little bit overblown, but you can do that on your own time. I'm getting a lot of negative comments. The people in the comments section. They
love me. Yeah. Bring them on. Send them right over to me. Semper Veritas X.
Sure. I'll send them over. Here's one from David. He says that the U.S. just wants our resources. Like they don't want us to be a part.
So I got a question for David. What's our resources doing for him presently? Because I hear this argument a lot too, and this one kind of bothers me because I'm dying in this economy, bro. I'll use the euphemism of being strangled slowly. Our rents are increasing at a rate that's just unbelievable. Our wages are stagnating relative to the influx of immigrants into Canada, which has no sign of stopping. So what are our national resources doing for him? And why is he concerned about Trump getting them as opposed to, I don't know, Xi Jinping?
Maybe he'll.
That's a rhetorical response, but I mean, that's my position on that, man. I got no time. Like, I don't know. I'll ask you, Payman, are our resources doing anything for you presently? Our GDP per capita is decreasing at an alarming rate, I might add.
No, I'm trying to give a diplomatic answer. the globalists, the City of London, through Trudeau, they've mismanaged our country for decades, even before Trudeau came in. Like our refusal to mine our resources and develop them.
Yes.
So our quality of life is getting worse. And then south of the border, the quality of life is getting better. So people are put in this position. They're like, wait a minute, we have two options. We can stay with our government and we can go towards slavery and death, or we can take a chance with the Americans. I can understand. I don't like it, but I can understand why they're making that choice.
And I really want to clarify again, I don't like it neither, man. I just feel like I'm in denial by not acknowledging some of the, not just our own reasons, but America's reasons. Specifically, again, some of the, like, maybe the Chinese stuff is overblown. Look, I have no credentials to reference. I have no primary source data to provide citations with. I'm a discerning, above average, intelligent individual that's trying to call it as I see it. I know my news is lying to me. I came to X to literally try to make sense of the madness and speak to other people and see what they think. I call things how I see them. And that's constantly evolving with the discovery of new information. And again, I really think we're in the preliminary stages of getting some disclosure. I watched a release yesterday from America regarding 9/11 truth. They have some kind of a committee they're putting together to actually get everything released to the public regarding Epstein files, regarding the 9/11 files, regarding other stuff. I shared it on my X account yesterday. But I really think we're going to get some new narratives. Are they going to be entirely true? I doubt it. You know what I mean? It's the government. My views on government are smaller, decentralized government. And again, I'll clarify. So why do you want to go to America and be a supercontinent and be a massive super? Because states' rights exists. States' rights exist. I feel like a subject under the British parliamentary system that we have. I really do. I feel like I don't have much actual recourse. I feel there's no mechanism in our political system for true reform. And I feel right now that we're being held hostage by an illiberal minority government that's historically unpopular. And they're at the same time negatively influencing and impacting these trade negotiations. At the same time, they're trying to fire up the peasantry, me, to start being pro-Canada after you shit on me for 10 years. Fuck you. Not you. I'm speaking rhetorically, man. I'm being silly. But you know what I'm saying? And that's the perspective of a lot of working class people right now. It's just how I see reality presently. And look, man, if I'm wrong and it turns out this isn't, I'll be the first one to say, hey, man, I'm wrong, because I don't have my ego attached to this. I am quite sincerely just trying to figure things out and call them as I see them.
Sorry,
just like everyone else is. Everyone else is at some level. I'm just honest about it.
Okay, I'm going to bring up these. I'm going to read these. Andre Maloche, former PPC candidate. There's no rationalism in politics, and most people are brainwashed and illiterate politically. Could we propose to abolish the universal suffrage, that's voting, whatever, democracy, to challenge people who don't care about who is governing our country? And if so, how could we do that before major conflicts, civil war, and Canadian perestroika? Come on, Andre. What's the question here? I think he's too much democracy, too many people voting wrong, I guess.
Well, that's the post-liberal stance, the whole post-liberal type. I almost say, hey, like some kind of authoritarian type style governments. Some of these people are pro-monarchy. Some of these people I encounter are more neo-fascistic. James Lindsay calls some people woke right. I don't like that. I think it's kind of disingenuous, but it's gotten him a lot of negative feedback on it. But on some level, I think he's absolutely right. I think there's such polarization politically right now that we're seeing what happened in the 1920s in Europe. We're seeing conservatives and liberal types, people that are predisposed to be conservative or liberal, becoming farther right and being pushed farther left into where they're all just authoritarian.
Wolf just picked a fight with Andre in the comment section.
Oh, it's popping off. See,
yeah,
it's the provocative conversation. People got to tune into this.
Yeah, you're gonna voice your opinion, and then I'm the one that's gonna get beat up after this. How could you have?
They're relentless. They're relentless with me. Like my account is constantly under attack. It all seems, some people are real. I try to be fair with the real people because I want a discussion. Tell me I'm wrong, but don't ad hominem. Don't tell me I'm a piece of shit, or I will I will retort in kind. Like, I think I don't have no time for that kind of adversarial, juvenile, lack of decorum type troll shit. But if people want to actually challenge my perspective, I want it to be challenged, because I'll tell you, in some ways, I wish I was wrong. That's how I view it. I think we're going through motions here. I think there's broader things occurring that are absolutely out of our control, and we could talk about all this stuff and have our little theories and what we should do, even make plans, and we should. But I think at the end of the day, there's large powers making decisions. I think the old guard, the old oligarchy, maybe they really started running things with the passage of the Federal Reserve Act. Maybe they got more of a stranglehold post World War II. Maybe in 1963, when Kennedy was assassinated by a lone assassin, maybe that gave them a bit more power. But I really think there's a power structure that has been calling shots in the Western democracies since at least World War II. I think they're being replaced in some regard right now, and I think they're not going to like that. And I fear that we're going to have some kind of major conflict as a result of this.
Well, I mean, if you want more proof of what you just said, just look at the 180 they pulled with this Canada is a racist, genocidal, post-nationalist state. Then,
100%.
oh no, we're all Canadians. Rally behind us to defeat the big bad Trump.
Mm-hmm.
Like on a dime, the liberals they
want us to dance for them.
Yeah, but the people are dancing.
Yes. Oh, I know. That's the most disconcerting aspect. Even conservative people are dancing. Even people that are more libertarian minded are dancing right now. I'm hearing smart, intelligent, strong conservative Canadians making impassioned arguments for the sovereignty of a country that wants to limit their individual autonomy and agency. It's surreal to me. I attribute it to Stockholm syndrome, which I've recoined, and I'll reiterate here. I call it Ottawa syndrome. We have Ottawa syndrome. It's not Stockholm syndrome anymore. We're watching the same psychological mechanism occur broadly in Canada with the population and the government. And again, it goes to mass formation too. I don't want to go too off in the weeds, but I read a book called The Psychology of Totalitarianism by Matthias Desmet. If you haven't read this, man, like, put it on your list. It augmented the way I perceive such things. I wrote a short article. It's probably only about 1,000 words on my X account if anyone wants to reference it there. But when you understand the mechanism of mass formation, and then when you get into like Bernays or like Yuri Bezmenov with the ideological subversion and the mass manipulation, you could see that the people that the ruling class are literally manipulating us. They're playing us off each other. They're creating things, that whole Hegelian dialectical aspect. I'm not going to go into the weeds on the abstract philosophical conceptual workings of it all, but there's bigger things going on, and it's, again, I think it's reductive to just be like, hey, anyone who's entertaining Trump's or the Canada becoming part of America argument is just being a traitor. I don't just think it's disingenuous. I think it's reductive, and I don't think it's getting us anywhere. Tell me how it's going to be better for me to not want to be American. That would be the way to deal with this pragmatically. I'm not telling you to. I'm speaking more rhetorically. Like, that would be the, hey, man, if I wanted to convince someone, I would tell them why they're wrong and what would be better for them with the antithesis of that.
Well, we got a little bit of pushback again from David, a great guy. It's a very wonderful human being. He points out, like, it's good now. Trump's in power. What happens if you join the U.S. and the psycho Democrats get back?
Okay, I want to address that. So that's very possible. That's absolutely very possible. But from a Canadian standpoint, then we have constitutional protections. In Canada, we have state-sanctioned privileges. We've seen what our rights equate to during the trucker convoy. They could be revoked at any time. Then it's a privilege. It's not a right. In America, we have inalienable rights, and we also have 2A, which is very relevant in such conversations. Now, furthermore, the more likely scenario of our future is Pierre Poilievre being elected with a majority, not being able to get anything past the Senate, Canada continuing to decline, and then Mark Carney being elected. Then UBI, then the last nail in the coffin for prosperity in Canada. All the smart money is leaving. All of the smart money is leaving now. I get his concern, but it's like Thomas Sowell says, there's only trade-offs. You got to analyze, you got to do a sophisticated analysis of pros and cons to arrive at a reasonable conclusion or course of action. And there's a lot of trade-offs. That's a possibility. I think my scenario is far more likely for Canada.
Let me just rapidly go through some of this. Wolf, yeah, of course you can share a Substack article. You can DM me and I can bring it up if you want. Prairie says I had a lot of Pierre Polyev followers on me yesterday, so she's getting attacked. David, what about the patriotism angle? Like the Canadians who had grandfathers and great grandfathers that fought in 2 world wars and died possibly to save the country.
I did.
But maybe they don't want to. Like, what would you say to them?
Well, the same thing I say to me. I don't want to. I don't want to. There's an ever evolving landscape geopolitically. There's big things happening in the power systems and the dynamics behind the scenes of our governance. And I think we're all along for the ride to some extent. We're interpreting it, but I don't know how much we're even affecting it. I think there's bigger things going down, man. I think Trump and this new establishment is making a go for it all. Whatever the Western democracies is, you know what I mean? However you want to say it's the globalists or the Chinese technocrats, whatever, whoever's really pulling the strings behind the scenes, pushing the these agendas, I think are being challenged. And I think they've taken some blows. I think they're losing in this part of the world, especially in North America.
JP, I think you've ruffled some feathers. I'm struggling to keep up with these comments.
I hope so.
So
that's my
Wolf. You're talking about you're talking about globalists. I'm more with Wolf. I don't even call them globalists anymore. I just say the City of London. And Wolf says we are witnessing a huge schism between the City of London globalism and Federal Reserve technocrat of North America.
Yeah, I mean, we're definitely witnessing. Like again, I'm not an expert in any realms whatsoever, but the way I read it is just like that. There's a lot. We're getting fed narratives constantly that we're just inundated with narratives, and they're gaslighting us to fight against one another. I think in 2008, I think the power system was afraid when they seen the surge of populism, the Occupy Wall Street movement specifically. I think that really scared them, and I think they stepped up the ideological subversion, and they started to try to buy the revolution and spoon feed it back to people. And I think that's where woke came from. I don't think woke happened organically. I think it's westernized Maoism. And I think we were inundated with fallacious narratives and fallacious philosophical and conceptual frameworks that pushed us in these realms of thinking. And I really think that's relevant.
Andre went there. He's name dropping George Soros. Wolf, our resident genius. Canada has always been a serf state. We are not a sovereign nation, and we have never been a sovereign nation, and we are never meant to be a sovereign nation.
How's that going for us? We have a sovereign. His name is King Charles. I get it. Yeah, man. How's it going for us? I mean, credibly make a stance for continuing the status quo right now so I can call you retarded. I'm not being diplomatic. I'm sorry.
David says, what about the moral bankruptcy in America?
What about the moral bankruptcy in Canada? Are you kidding me? When you look at some of look right now, my tax dollars are being taken from me at such an alarming level. I'm being strangled in the economy. I'm paying a federal government that's inundating me with ideological subversion. I'm paying for rainbow sidewalks. I'm Catholic, man. I don't want to pay for rainbow sidewalks. I shouldn't be forced to pay for rainbow sidewalks. I'm a conscientious objector to the rainbow sidewalks. I don't want to pay for anti-racism buses, which is just, again, westernized Maoism. It's intersectionality, it's critical theory, it's ideological subversion.
Man, I
think the degeneracy happened in the West as a whole. I don't think it's in America exclusively. I think that's nonsense.
Wolf, I got your DM, but I can't read that article. It's too verbose for the show. What about Iraq? Like, what about this whole imperial ambition of the U.S.? If we become a part of that, wouldn't we have blood on our hands?
Well, I mean, that as the people of a country, if we're actually our vote actually counts, yes, there's no avoiding blood on your hands. This is why I'm not a politician. Well, number one, I'm not qualified and I'm not funded, but I wouldn't get into politics because I wouldn't be able to make the moral calls. I don't want to kill people. I have a moral basis. Again, I'll mention my religious beliefs. I don't want to make the call to subjugate people. I don't want to make the call to kill people. I could never do that. I would never want to put myself in a position where I felt like I had to make those tough moral calls, but they occur, and it's unfortunate. You know what I mean? I don't have an argument for the injustices of the world, right? Like it's.
So I'm going to read this comment from Wolf. I think he misunderstood your point, but says the Crown is in charge of of Canada, and JP has misread my comment. I don't think he did, but the monarch of Britain is our ceremonial head of state. The Crown power cartel is what owns Canada. Canada
Sure.
becoming a republic is preferable to remaining a serf state of the Crown. So I think Wolf agrees with your position.
And I agree with Wolf on that. If I misinterpreted something, I do apologize. We're moving pretty quick here, so. I agree with Wolf 100%. I wish we could have that. I really do. I pray for that, but I'm also looking more broadly geopolitically. I don't think that's going to happen for us.
Fair enough. I'm going to read something from Remanded. Remanded, I don't fully understand this, so you might have to put a follow-up comment. Listening to you on this space resonates better than the text-based posts. Okay, I understand that. I think this is the art of the problem, more so coming out from COVID. Hearing the human and context behind the message. For me, what I've been doing, especially after the Hoag's report, what are your thoughts on the Hoag's report conclusion? Do you know what the Hoag report is?
I'm unfamiliar. I probably should, but I'm very unfamiliar with the Hoag's report, so I wouldn't want to bullshit anyone.
Yeah, so Remanded, if you can comment on that. But I think what he's trying to say is after COVID, this whole text thing isn't working. You got to switch to video and do what we're doing right now.
Well, for me, it's just there's more information conveyed through speaking. I've always considered myself more of an orator than a writer. I'm not a writer. I have no education whatsoever. I'm a clever dude that likes to read a lot. I'm a janitor, so I binge audiobooks while I'm cleaning rooms, man. Like, for me, I go on rants with the guys at work, and I go on these epic rants. And then when I got to the point where the news media is gaslighting me on every angle, I'm just like, I got to get on X. It was when Elon apparently first bought it, and I started posting in April of 2023, and I just started calling shit how I see it. But no, definitely, this is a far superior form of communication, and doing these video things are better, even than just audio. I find the audio spaces are lacking. I don't even like to speak on the phone anymore. I like a video call. I want to see you. You know what I mean? Like there's more information transmitted for sure.
Look at Wolf. One last desperate attempt. Do not abandon text. Sorry, Wolf, this is happening.
What is print is dead.
Yeah. Here's a good one from One More Godless Woman. She's more into natural rights.
One more godless woman.
I actually interviewed her. She's a fascinating individual. The crown holds no legal title or bestowed title from God to own all of the land, all of the souls. The crown simply made a proclamation that it was the one true king. Thoughts? Were you listening, buddy?
Yeah, I'm still here, bro. I'm just hitting the coffee up. I do apologize for my unprofessionalism, but I did not think ahead.
No, it's okay. You do your coffee. So my thoughts. One More Godless Woman. Yeah, I don't buy into this whole divine right of kings. I'm not a slave. I believe in the individual as a sovereign unit of life. So I don't believe the crown has the right to own any land.
Yeah, epistemologically, you could get into various religions. I think liberty is the premise to Christianity. There's biblical precedents for it as well. Let be Caesar's be upon Caesar's, and let what for man be upon man. Something along those lines. But no, I think liberty is paramount. I don't feel anyone has any God-given stuff claim over me as a sovereign individual. I think that's atrocious.
Yeah. I just use the word slavery. Like I own my body. You don't own my body. You don't own my land. I honestly think like we got to get out of this mindset of corporations being allowed to own land. But definitely, I don't think government should own land. You could lease it from citizens.
Nor the crown. The crown lands in Canada are off the hook, man. It's outrageous. That's what, again, I'll go back to these resources. Everyone's hitting me up like, what about our national resources? And I just say right away, well, what are they doing for you right now? Seriously, like, what are they doing for you? Again, our GDP per capita is just dropping. It's plummeting. So we're not developing our national resources. We don't even have the ability to, on some very real level. We have to attract international investment to even benefit off them. And nothing's happening because that crown cabal that was mentioned is running the show when it comes to
here's a good question. Why join the U.S. when it was Trump that started Warp Speed, and then now he started the Stargate cancer vaccine stuff? Like, do you really want to be a part of that?
I don't. No, I want a Republican Canada, but I also see what's happening geopolitically. Again, I'm getting to the point where it's ad nauseum for me, but no, it's not my preference, man. None of this is my preference. I didn't want this. I'm not reveling in it. I'm not enjoying it. I'm watching a country that I loved become absolutely just taken over by criminal and foreign and globalist interests. And I'm watching a people that I love. I'm watching the people that I love be gaslit into arguing with their neighbors as opposed to the tyrants that are subjugating us. So, I mean, no.
Wow, remanded. I'm not going to read it. Apparently, the Hoag's report was about foreign interference over 30 years,
Okay.
50 MPs, not 11. So this adds, even if and when you want to fight for Canada, we have no avenue to recall federal MPs. Okay, I think remanded is sort of siding with you. He's saying we don't have the tools, the toolkits.
That's right. There's no political mechanism for real reform in Canada. That's what my research has led me to that conclusion. I'll go back to our current predicament. We have to again reiterate this. We're right now the most historically unpopular minority government in Canadian history was facing an imminent non-confidence vote. So what do? They get the governor general to shut down our government until apparently late March, so they can influence these pivotal trade disputes negatively and fire up the peasantry to fight with each other instead of like saying, hey, let's make our country way better for the people and listen to what Trump has to say.
Andre, you're a married man. You don't have the right to talk about Taylor Swift. Perish the thought. I'm gonna bring up something David said, Freedom Conversation podcast, but I'm gonna put it in more diplomatic terms. Could it be the case that just joining the U.S., you were ignoring the problem? Like we're just switching from one tyrannical government, Canada, to another one. Yes, it's less tyrannical, yes, but if we don't stand here and fight for our property rights,
you're standing against the whirlwind, brother. I mean, like there's 40 million of us. Do you want to be the Alamo? If that's your idea of patriotism, we're going to fight for Canada and be the Alamo to the last man. You could have that. I'm not interested in that. You're pushing against the whirlwind. There's so many geopolitical elements, and I really see it in a dichotomy: communist China, the European Union, or America. That's the position, and it's because of mismanagement, and it's a goddamn shame. Pardon my vulgarity and my blasphemy, but it's a shame that it's gotten here. But I didn't do this. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sorry. It's hard. I wish we had more time to come to terms with these realities. That's the biggest thing. When I'm arguing with people and they're being nasty to me, I feel terrible for them. I wish we had more time to come to terms with this. That's just how I see it. And I hope I'm wrong on some level, but at the same time, I don't think we're going to be able to establish a Canadian. I think it would, if we were going to get a Republican candidate, I think it could take a decade at least, best case. I think the Conservatives have to get in there and fail. And then I think some kind of reform party, be it PPC or an actual new Republican Party, a Canadian Republican Party, something along those lines would have to come and garner national support. And it's not going to get it until Canada goes through some hard times economically. So just pragmatically and practically, when I look at the landscape, I think what's best for my family and my neighbors and the people of Canada is to be part of America and have constitutional protection.
So I'm just going to blast through. We're going to stop reading the comments because I got to go. I got a hard stop in 5 minutes. Yep. Wolf, coming to your support. Bingo JP, Canada is embedded enfeeblement built into our political scaffolding. There is no accountability. It is a power cartel. JP is right again. Self-governed. Did these people fight with or against the U.S. in those wars? I don't know which wars you're talking about. Do you? Okay, JP, let me just quickly give you my thoughts of what I think is going to happen.
Sure.
I think we're not going to join the U.S. I think this is just a ploy by Trump to get access to our energy resources, to get access to the Atlantic North, the North Passage. the Arctic Passage. Sorry. And then I think Canada is going to go through some really hard times. 30 years. That's how long I give it before we build constitutional conventions and we start forming republics, either in the provinces or less likely as a federation. I think Canada's economy is going to get absolutely ravaged. Like
yeah, hyperinflation.
It's going to hit rock bottom.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with that. And honestly, like there's third options. Like look at the Kevin O'Leary thing, an economic union. It's not like the European Union, but more like the UK. You know what I mean? Northern Ireland, Scotland, Wales. I'm not an expert on the UK, but you know what I mean? Like that kind of like one system. We still maintain our country, our national sovereignty, but there's a larger centralized body to provide us with access to the American market. I think their goal is also to, again, like NAFTA, the renegotiation of the trade in North America is one of the definite reasons behind a lot of this. I think it's very real. I really think that Trump's going to make a hard push for it. And I'm watching this movement. When you and I spoke a month ago, I was saying like, hey man, I'm just making thought experiments. I was saying, I was like, I really don't think it's ever going to happen. I don't think that there's a way for it to happen. But I watched that. It's like I say, Trump started trolling. And what it did is it planted a seed in the fertile mind of a demoralized people. And I've watched that seed grow, literally watched it grow. And it's just, man, and I know there's a lot of bots on both sides of this, but most of them are against it. These bootlicking regime apologist bots that are just attacking every pro-America Canadian commentator out there. So it makes me think that it's even bigger than I think, because I think they're proactively trying to quell this, because that's how it happens first. Then what if Trump turns around and actually leaks some serious intel to the Canadian population regarding some of the foreign interference in our government? Is that going to change the sentiment? Of course it is. And if I was Trump, I would do that. If that was my goal, I would. And then I would let this grow more, and then I'd start to make more. I'd pressure in other ways. I'd really hit the tariffs, because our government's response to the tariff threat is to blame Trump, print more money. They could potentially evoke the Emergencies Act and delay elections even further. Like, these are very real scenarios for Canada right now. We got a lot of boomer cons that are flipping liberal. They absolutely love Mark Carney. It's like, oh my God, you were just born to be subjugated. Like they do. They're like, oh, I had someone, I shared it on my X account yesterday. I feel an air of stability with Mark Carney. An air of stability. Again, and this gets biblical. It's like when the Israelites were in Egypt in the desert, it was like, you know, some of them were complaining. They wanted the tyranny of the Pharaoh, because the reality of being in the desert is sometimes there's comfort to tyranny. Again, man, we have Stockholm syndrome. I'm changing it. It's Ottawa syndrome. Canadians are suffering from Ottawa syndrome. I hope it goes better for them. I will continue, though. The naysayers and the trolls don't dissuade me. If anything, they embolden me. I intend to be defiant in the face of collectivism until my last breath. So I'm going to keep speaking my truth regardless of who calls me anything. And I want to talk and speak with like-minded people. I'm very respectful, even when I'm in disagreement with people. I'm not juvenile. I keep a decorum. I like to discuss ideas. So if anyone wants to reach me, I'm at Semper Veritas X on X, and I'm exclusively there. So that's the only place you can get me.
That was going to be my question. JP, thank you very much for coming on. I got a hard stop. I got to run to another meeting. I will get you back on soon, brother.
We got to go where we can just go, man, because me and you could go deep. I would like to really just see where we would get to after like 2 or 3 hours.
Sure. One day we'll get some whiskey involved in the truth.
Absolutely. I'm down for that, brother.
All right. Take care.
You too, man.
Thanks for the audience as well for the great questions. Bye, guys.
Absolutely. Take care.